Hey, HannahMouse1 here. Welcome back to my devlog series for my dragon RPG game. This week I added a few new things, including a new enemy, the wolf. But first I improved the game feel for some of the pre-existing elements of my game, like how it feels when items are dropped or how it feels to fight the grass snake boss, which mostly involved fixing hitboxes and the like. There was also a small glitch with the player's death that I sorted out, but one thing that I wanted to consider was what happens when you beat the boss, namely how do you get back to the farm, which is probably what you'll want to do 90% of the time when you acquire a new dragon egg. Which brings me to something that I've been contemplating for a while now, quick travel. I made art for a portal that would spawn in once you defeat the boss, but what I want to discuss is what makes quick travel feel good rather than cheap, overly convenient, or lazy. As a rule, the aim of a quick travel system is to balance the player's desire to not repeat content that they've already played, which can feel laborious or boring, and not to make the world feel small or worth skipping over. And this seems to come through the limitations of when you can quick travel and where you can quick travel to. The latter at its most basic seems fairly obvious. You probably shouldn't be able to teleport somewhere that you haven't already visited, otherwise the player won't know where they are within the grander scope of the world, and they're skipping gameplay that they hadn't even played in the first place, much less having repeated to the point of becoming mundane. And typically there'll be a few key locations that you can quick travel to, such as towns, cities, or villages. The former is a bit more nuanced, and different games will have different stipulations for when you are able to quick travel or what penalties there are for it. Some games will allow you to quick travel from anywhere at any time, but other games require you to use an item to do so. For example, two of my biggest influences, Terraria and Stardew Valley. Terraria allows you to return to base with the magic mirror or recall potions, which fits Terraria's formula of rewarding players for exploring and finding new items. Similarly, Stardew Valley has totems that allow you to travel to specific points on the map, but these are a lot rarer than Terraria's teleportation items, as this fits better with the slow contemplative feel that the game has, where travel times need to be factored into the day-to-day time window. Another big influence for me, Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch, handles quick travel in a few ways. Often at the end of a linear dungeon, it will create a portal to get you out of said dungeon, as backtracking through it would be a bit taxing. There's also a travel spell that allows you to quick travel to places you've already visited for the steep cost of 1 mana, but it's a fairly late game spell, so early on you still need to travel manually. Also, shortly after unlocking said spell, you unlock a freaking dragon, so this spell can very quickly fall under the radar. One person on my Discord seemed to like the idea of giving the player the ability to set a limited number of quick travel points, calling out the travel medallions in Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, saying that they provide a good balance as you can cut down the time spent between traveling to common locations, but due to the limited amount of them, you have to choose wisely where you put them, which is definitely something to consider. And someone else said that quick travel's fine as long as there's lots of hidden areas nearby on the map, caves, monuments, villages, etc. It's an incentive to keep traveling there on foot anyways. So that's definitely some food for thought, and if you want to join in the discussion, the Discord is linked down below. As of now, I'm having it so that you can teleport back to the farm when you defeat a boss, because these bosses will be at the end of linear dungeon areas that the player might not wish to backtrack through. But I also do want the player to be able to return to the farm on foot if desired, so I added in a new area to connect the two. For the sake of pushing the player through the tutorial stages, it will only become accessible after the boss has been defeated for the first time. I created 2 bushes to frame where the transition point into the new zone is, and got those loading into the initial area, and then made it so that the new area can actually load in. I wanted to add a new enemy for this area, the wolf, and I wanted this to be way more complex and interesting than the slimes. The first way that I wanted to do this is to make its idle state a bit more interesting to watch, so the wolves will alternate between wandering around and sitting. For this, I drew the wolf facing in each direction, as well as creating all of the walk and sitting animations again in each direction, starting with the outlines, then adding in the color and shading. Obviously this was a lot more work than the 4 frames total that I did for the slimes, but it was definitely worth it. I then added the wolf into the game, loading in the texture and all that jazz. Another way that I wanted to make the wolves a little bit cooler was to have them operate in packs. They'll spawn in small groups and stay close to their pack mates, and if you get close enough to alert any one of them, they'll all become hostile. To do this, I needed to create a new type of entity, a pack entity, and this will control all of its members. I created the animation for when the wolf is alerted by the player, and what the wolf is going to do is howl at the sky. I based this off of the sitting animation and needed to animate this for each direction, and then I had to code it in so that the wolf howls, and then the entire pack starts to chase the player, with the wolves animating correctly and facing in the correct directions. The next stage was to get it so that the wolf could attack the player, which of course required another set of animations, one for each direction, before likewise getting this implemented and animated correctly, before setting the wolf back to their generally hostile state once the attack is completed. But this fight was feeling a little bit one-sided, so I added in the ability for the player to hit back, again starting with the animations. To be 100% transparent, I'm not completely satisfied with this. I tried to make it so that the wolf twists back and draws away almost, but it's a bit jarring, probably something that I'll have to work on. I added this into the game, which wasn't too tricky because it works basically the same as it does for the slime. I wanted to add in some new items for the wolf to drop, starting with the art for the wolf hide and claws. These will be used for crafting weapons or armor or something down the line. I added these items into the pre-existing item system, giving them descriptions, stack amounts and the like, and making it so that the wolves can drop them. Next, I added in another new area that will connect this area to the previous one, the farm, and eventually the town that I'll be adding in. I made a map for this before going through and making sure that I had all of the transitions between scenes in the correct positions and that they load in the correct areas. This was slightly annoying to do because the wolves kept trying to murder me while I was doing this, but hey, at least it shows that the wolves are working, right? And finally, I populated the new forest area with slimes and bushes and mushrooms to make it more visually appealing. Before we wrap up, I do want to say that this might be the last devlog on this game for a month or so. Don't worry, this project isn't going anywhere, but there is another game dev project that I've been working on behind the scenes that has a really strict January deadline, so I really need to knuckle down on that and won't have as much time to spend on this game. More info on that secret project in an upcoming video. But apart from that, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you did. It lets me know there's something I want to see more of. Join the Discord, link down below, and I'll see you next week in another video. Bye!